hasn't considered benching Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is off to his worst start in his NBA career, but the Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr says he has no plans to bench the veteran point guard. When asked if he's considering moving Thompson to the bench in favor of Jordan Poole, Kerr was empathetic in saying no. No, it's not something that I've given thought to, Kerr said. Jordan and Klay are very different players. Jordan's on ball, Klay's off ball. Klay is a starter. That five-man unit is the best in the league. Through 9 games, Klay Thompson has shot a career low 36% from the field, including 32.6 from three-pointer. For his career, Klay Thompson has shot 45 from the floor and 41.5 from behind the arc. All right, Pete. I think we got to start asking the question here as we look at kind of the Golden State Warriors stats here. You can clearly see that both guys play about the same amount of minutes, except, Jordan Poole kind of ticking towards the upside of 29 compared to 28. Am I making a big deal out of should the Warriors consider reducing Klay Thompson's minutes a lot more?
I said it our last stream, so 2 weeks ago. I said that it was one of my cap or no cap segment, bits. I said the Warriors I thought had the worst defense in the NBA. And if you're watching, it's not good. It's not good. It's really terrible. Yeah. And a lot of that problem is that Klay was that guy for this team for a long time. He was their guy. Like, who's their best player on the perimeter? Okay, Klay, you got him. Take over.
Yeah.
They don't have that guy. So regardless if it's Poole or not, it doesn't matter. Like, if I had any say, and actually, so let me start by saying, yes, I think you should reduce his minutes a little bit, right? Like, he needs to keep playing himself into form, even if maybe he doesn't have it. You at least have to give him enough minutes to keep trying to get there, right? Poole is not the answer to what this team needs either, in my opinion. He's critically important. I'm not saying he's not. Yeah. I'm just saying they need some defense. They need something. So if it was me, I'd get Moody some more minutes. Get him some more minutes out on the court. He's long, he's athletic, he can score a little bit, and he's actually a better defender at this point than Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson, probably.
Yeah.
So put him out there. You drafted him for a reason. Either use him or trade him for somebody that does something for you. That's the thing with this team. It's not even a question to me of like, is benching Klay or taking some of his minutes away going to improve this team? It isn't even the question. What are we doing with all these assets that we have, these young guys that don't get enough minutes? Why is Kuminga not getting enough minutes? Why is Moody not getting enough minutes? Wiseman, what even is Wiseman? Do we even have any clue what that dude is? Like, is he a backup center? What is he? I don't get it. We took years to get him on the court, and now this is the payoff for it. It's still, Kevon Looney is still the center for this team. So if I'm them, another team, I think, should just go make a move. They've done everything right up until this point, and this is the huge difference between them and the Lakers. They continually invested in the guys that they drafted, their big three, the dynasty, and they reinvested in youth to continue growing so that they always have these things to move around, pieces to slide in, things to trade out. The problem is that they just won't make any moves, man. It's been years of talking about this team doing something. And I think we were talking about this in our group chat the other night. But like, imagine if they had made that trade using Wiseman, the Wiseman pick and something else, and they went and got Pascal Siakam a couple of years ago. This team is a completely different story right now if they had done that. It's too late to do that. They can't get Pascal Siakam right now. But they still have a ton of assets to go do something. So it's bigger than Klay. I actually feel bad for Klay in the sense that people are looking at Klay to be something he can't be anymore. And it's something that the team that he's on desperately needs. But the problem is that he wants to get paid like he's still that guy. That's the biggest problem. And him and Draymond, getting upset and acting like they are those guys. I thought that Devin Booker situation with Klay was pretty illuminating. It was pretty illuminating, man. That is a dude who is so far in his head that he has to come up with anything he can to talk crazy to young dudes who are cooking him, right? Yeah. Like, Devin Booker was giving Klay the business that night. And, there's a lot of people that think it's super cool to say, I got 4 rings. Like, you're playing a game and you're getting fried right now, man. It's not the finals last year. Like that's great that you're a
Yeah.
4-time champion, but you're not that guy right now. So I thought that was a big sign of like this dude is trying to
Tell us something.
not only trying to like his body language is telling us something huge, and I'm the body language guy of this of the charge. But the body language is terrible, man. It's
Yeah.
terrible. And like I do think it looks like a guy who knows that his days are numbered. And that Charles Barkley post game thingy where he talked about Chuck and what Chuck said. Chuck didn't lie, but that was still you heard that, right?
Kind of go into it for our audience that didn't hear it.
Okay, so I think it was probably 2 weeks ago at this point. Charles Barkley, the TNT Thursday night crew with Ernie and Shaq, they were talking about Klay and saying Chuck, said what we're saying. Klay is not that guy anymore as far as, the athleticism. He just doesn't have enough with all his injuries to be that guy anymore. Not a lie. But Klay took it super personally and was like, almost like getting choked up in the post-game interview talking about, that how much it hurt his feelings that Chuck said it. It only hurts his feelings because he knows it's true a little bit, right? Like it wouldn't take that much out of you if you didn't believe it.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for him, but I also think the Warriors need to do a better job of putting him in a better spot to actually succeed and make their team look better, because it's not that different. And people are going to instantly jump down my throat, but hear me out. It's not that different than the Lakers with Russell Westbrook situation, in the sense that like you can't ask a guy to change his stripes or be something he's not and then blame him when he doesn't do it, but he's built his whole career on being this guy, right? That's so not fair as an organization. As an organization, the coaching staff and the GM, I think it's your obligation to your players to do everything you can. And Bernie, I'm sure you feel the same even for your team that you coach. You put those guys in the best position to succeed.
Yeah.
Even sometimes if it hurts their feelings a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
You
tough
can't let them go
decisions.
out there. It's tough decisions, but I think that's kind of the situation with the Warriors, man. Like, look at how they handled the Draymond situation.
Yeah.
Look at how this Klay thing is going down. They're being super nice to these dudes and maybe letting them do more damage to themselves than they need to.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now with this whole Klay Thompson thing, is that when I look at kind of the stats and, again, stats don't lie. And the stats are saying that Klay Thompson, you're just not the same guy currently that you've been since, the last couple of years. Like, and I understand that the biggest thing for me in the Warriors situation right now, the reason why I think they're struggling so much is because they're trying to incorporate all these young guys into their rosters, into their lineups and rotations, because you could clearly see that if the Boston Celtics didn't self-capitulate last year in the NBA Finals, they would have won, and the Warriors would have went, defeated, and this would have changed the whole season coming up this year for them. They probably would have moved on from a couple guys, and they would have said, "Hey, we're moving on to having guys like Wiseman, guys like Kuminga, guys like Moody, all getting a significantly amount of more minutes." But because they won the championship last year, they have to kind of slow roll these guys into positions where guys like, we saw with Draymond Green punching Jordan Poole, same thing. Like, these guys are now starting to come for their jobs. They're starting to come for for their positions. They're starting to come for their minutes. And it's starting to, I think it's starting to affect some of these guys. I mean, like you said, I do think that Moses Moody should get a lot more minutes. I think he's getting about, 17 minutes a game. I think he should be at least at like 23.
Yeah.
Getting a little
He
bit
was
more.
good in the playoffs, like legitimately
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely good, man.
And as much as we gave the Lakers and Pelinka, some crap about the signings they did, I think you got to do the same for the Warriors. You got it. I mean, going to get DiVincenzo with the defensive guys they have on that squad is just as wild to me. I know Gary Payton had to go, right, based on the contract that Portland gave him. Juan Toscano-Anderson is gone. They wouldn't pay him as much either, but they did nothing to fix the defense of this team. And if you had been paying attention to that team throughout all the playoffs, through most of the season last year, they were solid, of course. They ended up winning the championship, not taking anything away from them. It literally took Draymond completely turning back the clock in those 2 games of the playoffs. Klay did the same thing to a certain extent. Those 2 dudes looked a few years younger than they actually were for a few games at the right time. at the
Yeah.
right time, and they ended up winning. But you they just weren't those guys for so many more games than not last season. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there was so much evidence that you needed to do something for your defense, and they
Yeah.
just didn't do anything. So I got to put some of it on Bob Myers. Some of it has to go on Bob Myers. Like you got to
Yeah.
go get defenders when you have Steph Curry as your best player. You
Yeah.
have to. It's the same thing as going to get 3-point shooting when you have LeBron as your best player. You have to have defense
Yeah.
around Steph because it's the only thing he doesn't give you, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, I think the Golden State Warriors are in a bit of a pickle right now as they kind of think about, I think that's the tough part when you have so many guys on your team that could potentially play for you or even, give you some good minutes is that there's not a lot of minutes to go around for everybody, right? Curry's going to take up a majority of them. Wiggins right now is doing really well, so he's going to take up those minutes. Draymond Green starting to decline. You're starting to give some minutes away from his starting role. Jordan Poole starting to emerge, so you give him minutes. Klay Thompson, like we just talked about, minutes starting to come down for him. Kevon Looney, always going to be around that 20 minutes per game mark because, as a center, he doesn't really give you too much on the offensive end. And if he's a liability on the defensive end at times, it's trouble. And then of course you got, like I said, guys like Moody, Kuminga, Wiseman, those guys. Those are kind of like your three investments that you're making into the future of like, we want to see these guys eventually take their spots. But man, it's tough for me to be like, it's a tough conversation to have. It's like anything in life. You have a veteran that's kind of doing his job out there in the work world, and all of a sudden you have this hot young shot that knows what he's doing and can make you a lot more money, and you're like, well, we gotta make decisions about finances. Like the young guy is cheaper to
Mm-hmm.
hire. The older guy is going to take a lot more money and has a lot more resources that's taken away from him, whereas the young guy doesn't need as much, and then it leads to kind of some hostility there, and it kind of leads to Klay Thompson kind of lashing out, like you said, in those games. Like he was clearly lashing out, in my opinion.
No, dude, 100%. And what does that come down to? That's panic that you see the finish line closing in, right? You see the guy that's 7 years younger than you on a team that won 64 games, and he's playing better than you did 7 years ago, or I should say, like you did 7 years ago. But he's not playing like you now. You now can't even compete. I think that is like
Yeah.
that's tough, man. That's really really tough. As like I think for all these athletes, and I can't relate, dude. I'm not an athlete in the slightest. Like I would never even pretend. I never had any success as an athlete. I don't understand it. But from the outside looking in, I have a ton of empathy for that feeling. Like you have been that guy for so long. You're still in a situation where everybody around you is telling you that you're that guy.
Yeah.
And they're just making you feel like it. You have it, Klay. We know you have it. But that isn't always necessarily the nicest thing to do to somebody. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
sometimes being honest and putting somebody in the best position for them, regardless if they want it or not,
Yeah.
is the thing to do.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I mean,
And yeah, go
the
for it, Bernie.
no, I was just gonna say, it's kind of like one of those things. Like, do you want to be honest or do you want to kind of carouse and go around the situation? I think a lot of people would choose honesty. Actually, I don't. I actually think a
I
lot of
don't.
actually, to
I
be
think the
fair,
opposite.
opposite. You're right,
Yeah.
because I think it's hard. The truth is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, hey, you just don't have it, and we've all kind of dealt with that experience at least of someone just telling us that straight up, or whether it was kind of the workaround.
Yeah.
And it's a tough pill to swallow. I've swallowed my pills like that sometimes when it comes to work and when it comes to coaching. Like, hey, I especially in my first years, I'll admit, like I was not a great coach, and
Mhm.
and I've kind of worked on that, and I've done so much stuff for it. Now that in my sixth year, I know what I'm looking for. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses, and I know what to do for that. And it's kind of like as you get older, for sports it's a little bit different because as you get older, it's
Yeah.
hard to continue that level unless you are, Tom Brady and even LeBron James. But even those guys right now are starting to deal with some decline. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
but it's But with anything in life, I think that's kind of where it goes down to. But you're right, man. It's a hard pill to swallow for Klay Thompson. I think that kind of seeing a guy like Jordan Poole, get a little bit more of the accolade, a little bit more of the
Mhm.
memes are going his way. It used to be kind of like they talked about him, Klay Thompson's different personalities. Now they make memes about Jordan Poole
Jordan Poole, looking
and
into the crowd,
and
talking to
with
girls.
and having Malika Andrews on the sideline.
Well, and Sean, really quickly, I know I'm not trying to get away from our new plan, Bernie, but Sean, we're going to answer your question, so don't
Yeah, yeah,
leave. We'll
for sure.
definitely talk about
Yeah,
that. I think the biggest thing for the Warriors, and this is my final
yeah.
takeaway, I
You
guess,
you
for
got
the
final point.
Warriors.
You got final point.
I really think, and this is why I have to go in on Bob Myers a little bit, and just the front office of this team. It's a have your cake and eat it too type of situation, right? Where you're trying to empower Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, and
Uh,
we want you guys. This is the dynasty. This is the Warriors. This is the Dubs, right?
yeah,
But you're also trying to empower these young guys, and there's a conflict of interest in terms of what that is telling both sides, right? You're
yeah,
telling the young guys that, hey, we still like these old guys. They're still going to make more money than you probably. But you're also telling the old guys, hey, these guys are kind of creeping up on you and we want them to be out there more than you. We think they're better than you. So there comes a time where you as a front office in any sport have to make a decision one way or the other, and you have to determine what's more important to you. Or is it more important to you to make your players feel loved regardless of where they're at in their career? There's tons of value in that. You can't have it the other way too, where you're saying, hey, we're going to be like the Patriots, like Bill Belichick, and we're going to trade and cut, or we want to play. More teams should be like that, to be fair, where you have to do what's right in terms of making business decisions and move it before it's too late. But this is an example of a team that is doing it both ways, and I just don't think it works. I really don't, especially when there's as much money involved as there is with this team. It's a
yeah,
different story if everybody's kind of mid-level and makes not that much money, right?
yeah,
But if you have guys like Jordan Poole and Wiggins who are creeping up on these big contracts, I mean, they have big contracts now, but you have these guys getting big contracts, and then you're trying to tell Klay and Draymond that they can get it too if they perform well. That's so much pressure for those dudes. It's so much pressure for them to go out there and live
yeah,
up to the expectations that you're setting for them financially, but also on the other side, you've now set Andrew Wiggins and Jordan Poole up for failure too, and we saw that. We saw Jordan Poole get his face punched in by Draymond. Like anybody that tells me that has nothing to do with the contracts and money situation, I think you're lying. I'm sorry. I just know adults too well. I am an adult. I've been an adult for a while now. I've been in rooms with people talking about money. That stuff, even if you're not talking about it on the surface, that is the subtext
yeah,
of conversations in the business world. These dudes are all trying to get the biggest contract they can to set their families up for the most success possible. You can't make them fight over it like scraps at a table. You can't do
yeah,
it and expect the chemistry to be good. So
yeah.
sorry to get on a little rant about that, but I do think
It's all
I
good,
do think
man.
that's poor business, and you have to realize that there is going to be some repercussions to, the old having your cake and eating it too financially. It
Yeah,
doesn't that's why you have Bob Myers out there like a clown talking about I hate paying the luxury tax. Then don't have so many guys that deserve $30 million contracts, man.
yeah.
Nobody else is doing it except you.
It's the kind of the price you pay for the championships, man. It's like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things, financially, there's a lot of guys on this team that are probably going to be coming up, and then, like you said, there's some tough business decisions to make. And so, we'll see what the Warriors come up with in the future. But
Yeah.
let us know in the comment section down below, people. What do you guys think of the Warriors right now? Should Klay Thompson be a starter? Should he be getting more minutes, less minutes than Jordan Poole? And if you were to trade away any of these guys on the Warriors right now, who would you trade away? Who would you invest in? Is really the real question. Would you invest in the older guys, or would you try to invest in the younger guys like Kaminga, like a Moody, like a Wiseman? Let us know in the comment section down below.